What's going on, YouTube? It's Rad. I'm back with a video after not having done in a while. On the off chance you see this, Asman, I hope this prevents you from ever playing this game, and I hope it equips you with the knowledge of why it is a bad game. Anyone else watching this, hopefully it helps you out, or maybe you'll agree with why FF14 sucks. So with that, we're going to make this really fast. I'm going to hit you with bullet points. We're not going to go too deep diving in everything. I'm going to try not to ramble, and we're going to try to keep this 5 to 10 minutes so that it's easy to digest. Let's start off with what's good about FF14. Looks good. Visually good looking game. Got some nice graphics under the hood. Pretty good looking game. Armor looks great. Anything you're wearing can make your character look sweet. Lots of options there. So the loot is good. Awesome. Music, absolutely epic. It's Final Fantasy quality. Fantastic compositions. Great beats that you can play to listen to even when you're not playing the game. And then overall general UI and how quests are easy to follow, easy to manage, know where to go, what to do. And with that, it makes it really easy when you go online and you want to find a guide for something. It's much easier to figure out how to get something done in FF14 than it is in WoW sometimes, especially when it comes to trying to figure out maybe the story content from something prior to the current expansion. If you're trying to figure out the order you need to do things for Battle for Azeroth, for an example, that can be kind of difficult on trying to follow it, even when you're using things like Wowhead or Wikipedia, etc. It can all kind of get jumbled. That is... Oh, one last thing that's good about FF14. The bosses and dungeons are visually good looking, and the bosses are cool. And again, same thing for raids. Like, these things look cool. They feel epic to fight and do. So the game nails all that. Now let's jump into what's bad. Number one is the story. Yes, the same story that everyone is telling you that is really good, the second coming of Jesus Christ in verbal format. Let's discuss why that story is bad as quickly as we can. One, the language used is ye old English. It does not fit the characters that are speaking. It does not fit the world that they are in. It does not make sense that a giant bunny woman or an elf or a human or little tiny potato people or a cat girl or whatever are using ye old English. And the majority of that story is not voice dialogue. You are reading, and so you're reading ye old English, trying to decipher sometimes what the hell are they even talking about. You're going to get bored of this story really quickly. Everyone tells you, and everyone knows this, Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn, where you start off in the game, is an awful story. It's not interesting. The only few cool things that happen are near the end, and they're not cool by any standards. But you, the FF14 community, the guys who are smoking ganja on top of a mountain, have somehow convinced each other and are trying to convince everyone else in your weird little Illuminati clique, okay? You guys are doing some weird little pyramid scheme to convince everyone that this game has a good story. That, and I've read this multiple times online, is one of the best Final Fantasy stories ever, if not the best. It's also one of the best video game stories ever told, if not the best. Okay, you guys are literally out here saying this shit. Okay, have you ever played Last of Us 1 story, or Red Dead Redemption, or Skyrim, or Mass Effect 2, or freaking any game that actually has storytelling? FF7, if you want to go into the Final Fantasy games, or Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 9, all those games have good stories. FF14 has not a good story, and it's not interesting how you experience the story, which is its next biggest problem. You're going to spend hundreds of hours from the base game to get to the current end game at the end of Shadowbringers expansion, doing one thing 90% of the time. Not an over-exaggeration. Any FF14 person can tell you this. There is no questing. You walk from point A and talk to someone, to point B and talk to someone, to go to point C to see, maybe if you're lucky, a voiced cutscene, to then go back to that first person you start with to turn in and get a completed quest. It is a walking simulator. It is an on-rails, hold your hand, awful experience that you will be absolutely bored with. And this isn't just the first initial story where you're delivering onions for a epic Final Fantasy VII story for weird little fairies in the wood. I shit you not. What? And then in Shadowbringers, the most latest one, you'd think they'd fix dull story quests. At least I'm going to be walking around to see cool cutscenes. No. I'm watering a garden in a cave for a quest, carrying a water jug. Okay? This is the most unepic, dull, boring crap on the planet. There's a few okay characters that kind of stand out sometimes, but they don't get enough screen time, and they're not really used to their full potential. It's like if you had an epic character like Sylvanas or Thrall, and then you just never did anything with them, and like once in a while you're like, yeah, they're here, and like they cut one dude and they're like, I gotta go. It's be really weird to do that, especially in a Final Fantasy game. Like you get to see Barret in Final Fantasy VII for like, you know, once every disc, and it's like, oh, okay, that was kind of weird. Is he important or no? I'm not sure. Okay. That story is donkey crap. Okay. Heavensward gets a little bit better. Stormblood feels like an entire side story that's unimportant to the whole universe, and everyone tells you Shadowbringers is great, and I'm over halfway into it, and nothing is happening. Where is this epic story, man? Nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. You walk from point A to point B. One caveat. I said 90%. Every once in a while, you get a quest where you actually have to go hit something. Or after 30, it's usually roughly 30, 20 to 30, you unlock a dungeon. The dungeons are fine. They're training wheel dungeons, but they look cool. And the bosses are epic, like we mentioned at the end, in terms of just flavor and looking sweet. Not necessarily difficult, but it suffices. It makes you, in the moment, feel like this is fun to do. Okay. Moving on. The combat is not snappy enough, and that's because of how rotations work, how characters move, kind of the wind up to everything. You've heard this before. It's not awful, but it's not the best, okay? And the reason it becomes an issue is because if you're not just a PvE player, some people like to dabble in PvP. FF14's PvP is 100% dead. There's 4 weird neckbeard guys with fedoras with anime waifu posters that are playing. It's not an esport. It's not fun. It doesn't have enough players. It doesn't have good enough rewards. It's just clunky to play with, and that goes back to its gameplay not being all that. Let's continue on. You've reached to the end of endgame, and you were stupid enough to put yourself through this walking simulator. You get to the end, and you're wondering, all right, what do these quests kind of look like before we jump into the actual endgame? The quests are not anything innovative, okay? It's not anything you've seen before, and it doesn't even try to borrow the cool stuff that you do in other MMOs, like get into a giant mech. You do that once in a dungeon, but you don't do it in enough quests where you blow stuff up or turn into a flame elemental or bomb a pier with pirates and kill, you know, 10 of these guys, but then you got to get a drop from this one. They're not very fluid and feel good like these areas are worth exploring. There's no real reason to explore unless you want to mindlessly unlock the ability to fly with your mounts. Yes, that's right. If you want to have permission to fly in any zone in FF14, you are going to be hunting 10 plus of these weird wind spots, some hidden behind quests, some just randomly hidden, so you're Googling to find all these spots, wasting your time just so you can fly through an area. Just unlock it for everybody. No one wants to hunt fucking wind, man. This shit is stupid. Who designed this game? Speaking of design, the game is using 19-plus-year-old assets from Final Fantasy XI in Final Fantasy XIV. The same beetles that I was finding in FF11 19 years ago are in FF14, not colored differently or nothing. They're in Shadowbringers. Can you get some, I don't know, originality? Color the damn thing red or something. I don't know, but you gotta be kidding me, man. Talk about riding on the coattails of an actually good MMO, my favorite MMO, FF11. And for the people out there thinking I'm doing drive-by FF14 content, I played it since its alpha. Yes, even prior to 1.0, which was doo-doo tier. 1 out of 10s, 3 out of 10s. Christmas miracle they brought this game back from the dead. Okay, it really is. But that is a huge testament to the FF14 community, because you know what you guys are good at? Not playing your own game, and instead spreading propaganda to tell everyone that you are playing a really good game. You're so busy trying to convince other people your game is good that you don't actually play it. Now, that might seem like hyperbole and a bunch of BS, but if you look at the Twitch numbers, this is the last portion of what we need to get to. I've suffered through all of this crap. Everyone's told me it's good. You're telling people it's good. Now we've reached the coveted endgame. I've done all these extra dumb side quests just to unlock the capability to do these endgame engagements. They better be good. They look cool. Okay, why are they not engaging in fun? Because if you ever look at the history of any of these expansions, and if you use Twitch as an example to cover this as a fact, the second people do them, it's a one and done. They're not challenging enough to keep people around. The rewards aren't good enough to keep people grinding, and there isn't a good gameplay loop at the end to carry the game to the next expansion. How is that possible? Well, you just look at the Twitch numbers. If this game was as amazing as you guys are all saying, it should be way higher up in the directory than 2,000 to 5,000 average, number one. Number two, bigger streamers should probably want to be playing this game, especially the MMO guys. If the game is as good as you guys say, clearly they should be trying it and being all over it and never going back to the other game. Okay? And on top of that, when you look at the guys and girls who are FF14 content creators, they're not even running the rates. They're like doing anything they can to do anything else and try to freaking get content out of the sky. Probably putting FF14 up while they watch a hot tub stream with their chat just so there's something to do, because God knows the game is boring. It's the most boring MMO out there. Maybe Albion Online is a little more boring since all you do is farm in that game, but I haven't been back to it enough. FF14 is the number one game I've wanted to love since its release, but it can't do it. I don't know how you guys have convinced each other that this is a good game, but stay away. Unless you really want to be bored for hundreds of hours, or you have diehard friends who are willing to actually try to make the game somehow fun for you as you walk from point A to point B, on end, on repeat, doing nothing, in a story that was made by a drunk homeless man high on meth. All right, sub to the channel if you think it's nice. I'm streaming WoW on the weekends on Twitch. Stay horny. Deuces.